Hey folks, Colin here from Something's Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to use reverb when it comes to mixing vocals. We're going to be looking at how to use reverb on vocals today, but before we dive in, if you are ready to go a little bit deeper into the vocal mixing process and really start to hone your EQ strategy when it comes to mixing vocals, then I have just the thing for you. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through how to EQ your vocals step by step to help you get polished and professional sounding vocal mixes without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at these vocals and get some reverb on them. So I've got a reverb already created here, and we'll look at that in a second. But let me play you this this verse section here, kind of going into the final chorus. There's no reverb on these vocals. We've got a lead vocal here, and then we've got a set of harmony vocals, a stack of harmony vocals that we have going as well. We're going to look at putting reverb on both of them and how to do that efficiently here. So I'm going to hit play. You can hear this passage of our mix, dry vocals here.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk. No one catch the first train back to where I live. Oh Lord, stuck in Lodi again.
Awesome, and let me play that same pass here with just the vocal solos. So here's just the lead vocal and the harmonies.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, well, people sat there drunk.
So you can hear dry vocals, they're finished mixed, but there's no reverb or effects or anything on them yet. So how do we go about adding reverb to vocals? Now, the most obvious way is doing it just like you would add any other plugin, and that would be finding your reverb here and just dragging it onto the vocal track here. So let's try this. I'm just going to add a reverb here to the vocal track. We'll do a plate reverb, and we'll do a little bit of reverb here on this vocal. I'm going to loop this section, and we'll mix in the reverb. So I've got the reverb at 0% here because I don't want it fully wet. We're going to mix a little bit of reverb in to our lead vocal here.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, well, people sat there drunk. If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk. If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk. If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk.
Now that sounds okay, and if we wanted to go this route, we would have to fiddle with it quite a bit more to get it working inside the track. One of the downsides to putting reverb directly on the track like this and using the mix knob to blend it in is that the more you dial up the reverb mix, the less you have of the original vocal. So the further I dial up the mix knob here, the less volume we have because we're mixing in more of the reverb signal and we're getting less and less of our original vocals. So the further up I dial the reverb mix knob, the further back into the mix our lead vocal sits. I don't want to change the lead vocal mix. If we solo it up here and I A/B just the reverb plugin, listen to how drastically our lead vocal changes.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, well, people sat there drunk.
That's such a drastic change to the lead vocal, and the lead vocal is the most important part of a song. I've got it sitting where I want it. I don't want to suddenly drastically change that and strip the vocal of all the power it has. I want to keep the vocal where it is and add reverb to it. I don't want to mix between reverb and my lead vocal. So I'm going to take the reverb off the track here, And what we're going to do is we're going to send to a bus here. So I have a bus track created here. If I right click, I can add a bus. I can add a bus for selected channels. You can use an effects channel as well. I like adding a bus channel so I have control over the mono to stereo element, and I can also send off of bus channels if I want to send to other effects as well here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add reverb to the track in addition to our lead vocal. So we're not putting reverb on our lead vocal track. We're adding reverb underneath our lead vocal. So from our vocal track here, on the send section, and if you don't have it here, you just drag it up from the bottom here, I'm going to add a send to the plate reverb here. So this is the plate reverb we're using. And all it is it's the same flat plate we were using earlier inside of Studio One's flat plate. And I've dialed it up to about a 2-second plate, and then I've put the pre-delay up to 152 milliseconds. Now these settings changed as Studio One has updated over the years, but it's still giving me the same effect. So 2-second plate reverb, 152 millisecond pre-delay, and you can see we're at 100% wet here. And if you're not adept at using reverb yet, try presets inside of your reverb plugin. The one inside your DAW is going to do you just fine. And just grab a plate reverb setting. Any kind of medium plate will do you well. Like I said, 2-second plate reverb, and I've got 152 millisecond pre-delay on it. Don't worry too much about the pre-delay at the moment. That can be a little bit more advanced than just adding reverb to your vocal. Now, after the reverb, this is something I do all the time with my reverbs, is I roll off the bottom end. So you can see I've got an EQ following the reverb here, and I'm rolling the high pass on this EQ up to 200 hertz. So I don't want any low end or low mid information coming through and suddenly muddying up my vocal. That's the other downside to putting reverb directly on your vocal. You're putting it on the entire vocal and you're going to hear the full range of the reverb. I don't want a bunch of low end and low mid coming through on my reverb because it's going to muddy up my vocal sound, and I've already got my vocal sounding good. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm rolling off a little bit of the top end so the S's and T's and sibilance range don't get too harsh. Let me solo up the reverb here, and I will A-B just the EQ so you can hear what this is doing.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk. You know, if I only had $1.
Hear how much of that bottom end we're cleaning up by rolling all that off? It gives us a tighter reverb sound that we can pull further up to give our vocal length. If we have all that bottom end in there, the further we pull it up, the muddier our vocal gets. And I don't want to add more low mid information. Like I said, I've got the vocal sounding the way I want it to. Now, when setting reverb level, I like to set it at the chillest section of the song. Right now we're listening to probably one of the louder sections of the song here, an up verse, so we've modulated a bigger verse section. I'm going to go back to this first verse section. Now, what setting it at the quietest section does is it allows you to put the most amount of reverb you can and still hear it the way you want to. If I set my reverb level at the loudest section, I'm going to be pushing more reverb on the vocal to try and hear it in this denser section, and then when I go back to a quieter section, I'm going to have way too much reverb. So if I set my reverb level at the quieter section, that means it'll still sound good at the louder section because obviously you can see the vocalist is pushing harder here. So I'm going to hit play going into this first verse section, and we're going to dial in our reverb level on the vocal here.
Just about a year ago, set out on the road, seeking my fame and fortune, looking for a pot of gold. I ran out of time and money, it looks like I stole my. Just about a year ago, set out on the road, seeking my looking for a pot of gold.
That's feeling pretty good. So let's go back to our louder section here, and I'll A-B the reverb return. You can hear the vocal on this pass with and without the reverb. So here's with, and then I'll mute it.
If I only had $1 for every song I sung, and every time I had to play, people sat there drunk. If I only had $1 for every song I
So now what you can hear is that our vocal level isn't changing. Our original vocal's staying right where it was before, right where our finished mix had it. We're adding depth and we're adding length to it. So we're dialing up this reverb sound underneath or in addition to our lead vocal. That's why you want to send to a bus instead of putting the reverb directly on it. That way we don't change our original lead vocal sound, we add to it. That's kind of the essence of mixing, right? We're not changing anything, we're adding to it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these background vocals here. I'm going to add the reverb to these background vocals. Something you can do is put a completely different reverb on your background vocals, but what I like to do with harmony vocals like this, when it's a stack of harmony vocals, is literally just copy over the same send here. Again, if you don't see your sends, you can just drag them up from the bottom here. So I'm going to drag this guy right over to our harmony vocals. So now we have the same reverb operating on our backgrounds. What this is going to do is it's going to enhance the blend or further enhance the blend of our lead vocal and harmony vocals. So let's listen to this final pass of the song where we've got our stacks of harmonies and lead vocal, and I'll A-B the reverb here. So you can hear how everything blends together really, really nicely now. Nothing is changing between our original lead vocal and our original stack of harmonies. We are just adding length and adding depth to them. So listen one more time here on our final pass without the reverb and then with it here. So when you're looking to add reverb to your vocals, don't add it on the individual tracks. What you want to do is create a separate bus or a separate send where you send the lead vocal to that reverb and a send, not on the actual output here. Put your reverb there and then dial your reverb underneath. So you have your original lead vocal and we're adding reverb to it. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your vocal mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your EQ strategy, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and you can download it below to start creating more professional vocal mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.